okay. All right, here we go. In accordance with, oh, actually, this is the planning board, October 9th, got a quorum, have a public hearing, so in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, chapter 48, section 11, notice is hereby given that the Bolton Planning Board will hold a continuation of a public hearing on Wednesday, October 9th, 2019, at 7:30 PM in the Board of Selectmen room of the Town Hall, 6663 Main Street, Bolton, Mass. To hear and act upon the application of 21 Century Mill LLC, 291 Main Street, Suite 8, Northborough, Mass. 01532 for a common driveway special permit for a property located at 21 Central Mill Road, identified on Bolton's Assessor's Map 3D as parcel 32, 12.8 acres, located in Bolton's residential zoning district. The proposed common driveway will provide access to 4 lots.
Hello.
How you doing? Good seeing you again.
It's been a while.
So I think you guys had a meeting with Concom,
Yes.
and they, what's the official wording? Like they didn't agree with the current design, right?
Yeah, they did not issue orders or denials for individual lot owners and intents and the common driveways. Filed separately for 3 lots. For the lot construction, the common driveway was filed separately for those.
And that's, they determined that those are vernal pools, or just because the overall
No,
water? Or?
So we had quite an extensive process
Yeah.
with we hired a outside consultant to review that and they determined that they were not vernal pools. So that issue was resolved.
Did they say they were not vernal pools, or that they could not determine if they were?
I believe they had an expert out, and this is hearsay, because I wasn't at the meeting. Maybe.
Yeah, I can comment on it.
Yes.
They hired their own third-party peer review.
Are you the third party, or, oh no?
No, they hired
Oh, yeah.
their own consultant.
You are,
I'm Scott Goddard. I'm the applicant.
Okay.
Right, so the Conservation Commission hired a third-party peer review who's an expert on vernal pools, and they issued a letter making a finding, not finding it.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you said that they did not find vernal pools?
Correct.
So those areas were determined to be poor engineered wetland. Board of Health was also kind of holding off on issuing permits until that determination was made, because they had a different setback for septic systems from
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, so that those were kind of sitting in limbo
Okay.
on that matter, so those are now sort of free and clear on the septic design front.
So I could interject one other point. So the denials that they issued were for.
Hold on, can I actually, Erica, could you give us, do you have like kind of an on, like your side of things, what was that at Concom?
Sure, so I have talked to Rebecca Longwell, who's
Yeah.
our conservation agent, about this now. Granted, I am not a wetlands expert, so
Okay.
this is just her and I sort of discussing offline. So yes, the order of conditions were denied. In my understanding, there was a lack of information provided through the public hearing process, so the conservation voted to close the hearing and then vote after that. So that's my understanding, that they didn't have sufficient information at that point.
That they were requesting from the applicant, or?
And that's correct. That's what I was to say. So the
Okay.
reason for denial wasn't that the project was, viewed as detrimental or something like this. Or they were all lack of information. Now we had the public hearing. We're in dispute over that, and that will be disputed, between me and them. But my position is that they asked for information, and over a year-long process, we gave them anything and everything that they had asked for. I think they were just looking for a project to be smaller and smaller and smaller, that kind of thing. So it's not that it was a lack of information, in my opinion. So them and I are in dispute over that issue.
So are you appealing the?
Yes.
So that goes to the ZBA?
I think that is one other thing too. So Rebecca also mentioned to me that, and I'm not sure if this was through the third-party letter or not, but there is some concern that the areas that were identified as not being vernal pool could be land subject to isolated flooding, so they could be isolated wetlands, and they're protected under our local bylaw. So that's another issue that's sort of being, if it was discussed or in the future will be discussed, but she did mention to me.
So you're appealing to DEP then, is that correct?
it would be able to DEP for
A
Wetlands
superseding.
Protection Act, and then under the bylaw, it'd have to go to Superior Court, yes? Is that
The
correct?
local bylaw, yeah, so
Yeah.
are you appealing both? You're appealing both, okay, so, one goes to land court, one goes to DEP.
Superior Court.
I thought it went to land court.
I believe it's,
Superior Court.
Okay, sorry.
We need to apologize. Goes to court. So, you know, from the perspective of the project, as a planning matter, you know, we've got a common driveway proposed to serve 4 lots. We've revised the design, you know, quite a bit over the process of the planning board review. In the last go-around, we adjusted the common driveway to be a porous asphalt system, so it's basically an infrastructureless kind of drainage system where it's also managed beneath and within the driveway, which the driveway itself actually already exists. It's just going to be improved to common driveway standards. So, from a technical perspective, pretty simple site. It's flat. The drainage is relatively straightforward. You know, the issues are really related to resource area protection, floodplain. You know, from a planning perspective, these 3 lots are an A&R with a common driveway. You know, utilizing Hammerhead Lot and common driveway allows you to sort of be a little more creative with planning sites with, you know, environmental constraints, and it may be a better way than a subdivision road would look, or, you know, multiple shared driveways, things of that nature. So I think what we've come up with here is really the best proposal and the most environmentally sensitive proposal for development of the site. And the site is what the site is with respect to floodplain, wetlands, you know, riverfront area, et cetera. So,
Can I ask just a couple questions?
Sure.
Are you just now proposing porous asphalt, or you?
no,
proposed
that
before?
was here last July when we were here.
It was, yeah,
Yeah.
so I probably asked the same questions, but
Maybe.
you can probably refresh my memory.
I hope so, because
Um,
then I would know the answers. Right?
I'm assuming, that you've done some soil testing for the driveway so that you have the appropriate,
Yeah,
separation between groundwater and the bottom of your porous asphalt system.
we do. I mean, there was extensive testing done to for lots and adjacent to the driveway. And consistent 2 to 3 foot water table, which is beneath the stone bed.
Okay, so you have more than 2 feet of separation, is what you're saying, beneath the snow bed, okay.
So what are the changes from the last time that you're in here? And this was a while ago. I don't-
Well, so
have
we
you
really,
dropped one lot?
They're
Is
really,
that-
no, they're really well. So when we were here last, we asked the board to act on the Hammerhead Lot special purpose, so that the existing house at 21 can be conveyed. So that
Yes.
was divided. So really the land in question is, you know, lots 2, 3, and 4. Lot 1 has been created as rights secured through easement.
Mhm.
So,
But the other lots are the same as the
they're
last.
the same as
time
the
this all
last,
came before us.
last go around, yeah. Really been a kind of holding pattern, waiting for conservation issues to be resolved. And I haven't really got any constructive direction with respect to that process to revise the plan further. So, this is the plan that we have.
So if I remember correctly, the existing driveways periodically floods. Is that?
According to testimony,
Well,
It's not
I mean,
just the
it-
driveway, the
it-
property.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm worried at the moment, just asking the driveway at the moment.
the driveway is flat and gravel, and it pops up, it piles, you know.
Well, if I remember, it sounded a lot more than it was, you know, it was actually inundated.
Yeah, I think that
This is the
yeah,
100-year flip. This is the 100-year flip, right?
But yeah, it's on the next.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha,
that's it.
okay.
Well, that's it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
goes around
Yeah.
there, back, and then this is all.
Yeah, so then, okay, so all,
So
yeah,
all that.
and then
is
this small
flood
little
zone.
property over here.
Right, below, it's above the flood zone.
Okay, so then where is, no, that doesn't make sense. This should be.
It does, there's a, the other
Oh,
extent
here's
of
the
that
information,
is, yeah, it comes up and runs right along the edge of the
Gotcha.
driveway.
Okay, I see, and then it goes like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, so this is above, this is
That-
all
that-
below.
That is the only area on that side that's outside of the flood zone.
Okay.
This is out of the flood zone, and that's out of the flood
So
zone.
you're in, that house is still in the 100-foot wetland buffer though?
Yes, it is.
What's
So
the,
you're allowed to build within 100 feet.
Yeah, I've got a 25.
Well, that's Concom's call.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, the general rule is 25-foot in the disturbance zone,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
25 and
Well,
higher is discretionary.
yeah.
Right, it's not a guarantee. I mean, really, the extent of the site is largely all over the buffer zone. Right? It's not, this is the 100-foot buffer back here, here's the 100-foot buffer here. The 200-foot roof right here, and this area is out of 100-foot buffer. This is a small area, lot 3, the septic system is outside the 100-foot buffer from the house.
so the action's currently on Concom, then you can't do anything?
Well, yeah, so we're at a point where we'd like to keep this open and continue it, but I don't know how long the process of appeal is going to take with that process, and I presume that the board would not want to act on a special permit for a common driveway without resolution of that.
No, I wouldn't want to.
I wouldn't want to.
No.
Not, wouldn't consider approving subject to.
I wanna see what
I
they say.
yeah, I wanna, yeah, I mean, my personal preference, and I'm not talking for the board, I mean, I don't wanna kind of force other boards into a corner by approving something, and, that until they've, especially where it's headed for court. I don't think that's really good policy for us to.
Well, and also, I mean,
So-
if they come up with some final determination, that could completely change this to whether 2 houses or, so it doesn't make sense for us
Yeah.
to, there's
Yeah.
too many open variables.
Yeah, I agree, and the fact that the Bolton zoning bylaw for common driveway, one of the requirements for being able to issue a special permit is being able to opine on the environmental impact on wetland and water resource areas, and at this point, I just don't feel like the board has enough information to do that,
No.
so.
Yeah.
So, do we just,
What I would suggest, I don't think we can leave this hearing out there forever, we can't just keep continuing and
Yeah.
continue without receiving new information, so my recommendation would be that the applicant withdraw their application without prejudice, and then when they're ready to come back, they just refile, and it's.
when they're
we
done,
do
can
that.
they continue working with Concom?
Well, they'll have to, because it sounds like they're.
Well, I'm saying it's a separate hearing, right?
That's,
Yeah, that's
completely
completely
separate
separate.
jurisdiction, yeah. Yeah.
You guys good with that, or what do you wanna do?
Well, I think I prefer to not do that, but if your inclination is if you have to act on this, close it, it doesn't sound like actually it's going to be favorable, so.
I mean, otherwise, we have to keep opening the hearing, you have to show up if there's nothing new, I mean, we have to like schedule things months out, it'd be better just to close it, and then there's no reason why they couldn't create a new
I mean,
public hearing, right?
the whole point of a
Is there any-
public hearing process is to be able to receive new information, that's why you keep continuing it, because new information is supposed to be submitted, and at this point, I just don't think it's clear what that
Right,
map is.
seems very open.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if we could, while we have the hearing open, distill this down to planning board concerns with respect to the site.
Discussed it pretty extensively, I mean, you're on a little pad here, I mean, still, I know there was a third party that said there was, I don't know, what was determined? With the
It's just-
vermin
it's
pools,
just for
potential,
vegetative wetlands.
Yeah, but,
Yes.
or is it
Not-
isolated?
yeah,
Isolated
it
wetland.
could be isolated wetlands, and then at one point, I think, in my meeting minutes, I did have in there that you were looking at revising lots that, the lot, the house layout or the house configuration on lot 3,
Yes.
and you were gonna raise the basement elevation, because there was concerns about
Yeah,
that elevation.
I I mean, through the conservation process, there was discussion of trying to move the house and lot 3 out of the buffer zone. And I think really what would be more constructive to lot 3 would be raising it elevation wise, the basement floor level. I think there's ways to improve upon individual lot construction. But with respect to lot configuration, utilization of common driveway, that's really over feedback to the board on. I understand the environmental concern, I think that needs to be addressed through the conservation process, which is ongoing beyond that. I'd just like to hear if there's any other issue. I mean, again, lot 3, that was a good thing to bring up, Erica. That was one of the things we discussed.
And then I don't know if the board wants to provide any further input on whether or not, porous pavement is the way that we want the applicant to go with the design. I think it could be, because I know the Conservation Commission wanted as little disturbance to that area as possible, given the amount of the driveway within the 100-foot buffer.
As long as there's appropriate separation to groundwater, that's really the main concern. It's a great way to mitigate stormwater. It's the fact that you don't have to disturb more area to treat stormwater, and you've got it underneath your pavement that you've already got. I mean, I think it's a great way to do that, as long as there's separation of groundwater, and that's shown. That would be just my main concern, but,
What do you mean when you say that?
So you have, the way porous pavement works is you have your pavement, and then you have your filter media, which is really what kind of treats the runoff as it goes through it. At the bottom of that, it's kind of like the bottom of your system. So between that and where seasonal groundwater is, you have to have at least 2 feet of separation. If you don't have that, then it's not a great use of this, because you're gonna have groundwater that can go up into the system, and it's taking those voids and area, and, feel free to
What's
jump in.
the difference though if it's just running off into a swale?
So the swale doesn't provide any treatment, it's conveyance only.
Right.
And so the porous pavement actually has filter media in it that actually provides treatment as well as storage, so it's treating for peak rate attenuation as well as water quality recharge, and it's disturbing less of the land area.
I understand, but my question is,
The swale doesn't give you any treatment, it's
right,
conveyance.
right, but if they just went with typical pavement, and
Yeah.
just used a swale to direct the water or whatever, there's no,
There's no treatment of the runoff,
correct?
yeah.
But that's what it would be, there'd be no treatment, whereas with the,
The porous pavement actually provides treatment.
okay.
It's a much
So when you
better-
say you wanna see the separation of the groundwater, I mean, in the other way, it wouldn't have treatment.
But you don't, because it's not infiltrating directly into, you're not bringing the water down, and you're not having that direct connection to the groundwater.
I see
So-
what you're saying, so with the standard situation, the grass and ground would naturally
Yeah,
filter it.
it's gonna slow it down.
Yeah,
Um,
whereas this is like, it's a direct path.
Yes,
I got it,
So on a conventional system, you would have to attenuate or detain,
so
slow
you'd have
down.
a basin,
Yeah.
you'd have a swale, or maybe go to a basin.
You also have
Yeah, I got it.
a recharge requirement, so there's infiltration, but
Okay.
if you're coming off of impervious surfaces that are traveled, they have to be treated prior to, so
Right.
you end up with much more infrastructure intensive,
I got it.
drainage.
Yeah.
And with the high water table that you have here, you don't have a lot of room to put cover on pipes before you're into the
Yeah.
water.
Well,
table.
so that's the question, do we not know that already?
Well, so that's why I was
That's-
asking.
No, we
you
do,
have-
we do know that, and we have
But what's-
substantial test data throughout, this area here, and this area here.
And was
The
that
site's
included in
flat.
all of the submission? And I
There was,
apologize if
it's
it
just been probably a year.
Okay.
That's probably why, from what I had read in the meeting minutes, Scott,
Yeah.
it talked about hydraulic, seed soils. Now,
Okay.
is that appropriate, are those appropriate soils for the porous pavement?
They.
And they're not the best draining soils.
No, they can be utilized, but you just, don't get a great infiltration rate through them, so you need a larger reservoir for storage.
How big, how deep, do you have a detail? Sorry.
We do.
Right here, sorry. Of course, that feels like.
It's 12-inch, 1.5 to 3-inch stone bed, 3-inch filter course on that, and 3
Okay.
And the elevation on the new driveway would be pretty much identical to what's there.
Pretty much identical to what's there.
Okay.
One question, when, this was filed, when was this originally filed?
In August of last year.
Okay, so it was before our town meeting where our
Yes,
bylaws.
correct.
So right now, as it currently stands,
It still applies to the entire the environmental impact and.
no, I was
Oh,
referring to
okay.
the stormwater requirements, remember we updated those in,
Oh, to the rules and regulations.
Yes.
Um,
Did that-
so this, it didn't, that doesn't really come into play here because it discharges to a cold water fishery, it's a critical area, so therefore they are triggered to meet the Mass DEP stormwater standards.
yeah, but the Mass DEP stormwater standards don't require them to meet peak volume, so.
Right, I'm not gonna say practical, so, but yet the rules and regulations were modified, I believe, in January or February, so they would not have to, meet those requirements that we put in.
No,
If
no,
we
I know,
close
I
and
know.
open it, they will though, right?
Yeah, this is my,
That's true.
so if they close, yes, so then they would need to meet.
Yeah.
But it sounded like they weren't really concerned about,
I'm not
It sounds like
really-
you could probably meet it
No,
anyway.
I mean, you know, when you look at a site like this and what we're doing, you know, particularly an existing driveway, we're improving it. You know, we've got mitigation requirements under stormwater management policy, we need to decide that. I'm not overly concerned about that.
so I guess, I think we're all very concerned about this house and that it's pretty much on an island. I think if there's no vernal pools, I think we're more comfortable with those two. It seems like a drier area. I think, you know.
Assume that there's no isolated.
Right, exactly.
Right, right.
Assuming assuming what the current determination is, holds or whatever.
May I just have the owner provide some information on that, on the resource area?
Okay.
I mean,
Resolution of-
that's not our expertise, so that, I mean, it's up to Concom
Right.
or the courts now, so.
I mean, we have confirmation of what the resource area is that's been approved through the process for the conservation commission. So, I mean, that we have, and so the dispute over ongoing things is, you know, part of the dispute, I guess, with the commission, right? So, I mean, I can supply something to this board that verifies the resource areas, but
Yeah.
it's probably.
Well, right now, I think it sounds like it's in Concom's hands. I would recommend that we just close it out until that's settled, because it could go on for.
I mean, I think they can withdraw it without prejudice.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Or we have to vote on it. I think is where it
Those
goes
are the two
here.
options.
Or-
Those
or
are
we
the two
can-
options I would recommend, I mean, I wouldn't recommend keeping it open, I just don't think
Yeah.
that's productive
Yeah.
or
Right,
a good
because
way of doing it.
we have to keep, scheduling these meetings and continuing and.
Yeah, and if you're not receiving new information.
And really, I mean, nothing really, no offense, not much came out of today's meeting, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, before we withdrew, I wanted to see.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And
So
get
do you,
temperature.
so do you guys wanna withdraw, or should we just vote?
And get, and also get the opportunity to get any feedback.
Yeah,
Feedback from the
I
driveway.
think-
The main thing is raising that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm worried about flooding on the driveway and that we're now isolating 3 houses instead of 1.
Well,
So-
the half of the app, I guess we withdraw our application at this time, we apply later.
And if we do that, then there will be a new filing fee, the same filing fee will apply to the refiling. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the same filing fee.
So we won't have to repay it though second time.
No, you would, it's a whole new application.
Can we get consideration on that?
My understanding is that the town doesn't waive filing fees.
Or if we close the hearing and vote on it, I mean, really, what are your choices here?
Well, we don't wanna do that.
Yeah, so.
I mean, one thing,
so do we just vote to accept the, withdrawal?
Motion to close.
No,
No, we don't need to.
we don't need to if they withdraw, right?
have they made a formal request to withdraw their
They
application?
just verbally said it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I would have the board vote to accept that withdrawal,
Yeah.
and we can close the hearing.
Yeah.
we accept the withdrawal of the proposal for 21st Century Mill.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, we can close it now.
I move we close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Farm.
Yep. All right, next up, we got Robert Kiley from Hohen Farm. The applicant seeks a minor modification to the approved subdivision plans to reduce the number of proposed street trees. You doing? You're doing on build out, I see this new house right in the front going up.
Yep. There you go. Hi, I'm Peter Bradley.
They're gonna
Bob
get-
couldn't make it, and Greg had a family thing he had to go to, but basically, what we wanna do is, this is the tree plan that was submitted back in 2010. And I wasn't involved back in 2010, but I think there was some confusion. We were trying to preserve this meadow, and we were trying to have view into the meadow from the houses.
Yeah,
So down at this section, we have built in, not built in, there's plenty of vegetation there that exists. That's what this will show some of the pictures. So it would be removing trees to add trees there, so we don't think that makes sense there. And a similar situation here, mixed with,
so you're saying, so this is the proposed plan, but there's already trees in that area?
yeah, I think there's enough natural trees there to do what I think the intent was.
Which photo shows that?
That would be,
Oh, is that 5, 4, and 3? I see.
yeah, three,
Gotcha.
3, 4, and 5.
Yep.
There you go.
I guess we can show.
So what am I looking at here then? So this is the left side of,
So if you're looking at
Hohen
three,
Farm Lane.
three or here,
oh,
That
okay,
way.
oh, okay. Great, so looking, okay, from Sugar Road.
And, yeah, these were supposed to be planted behind the stone wall. Has this been, built?
Yes, that, all the drainage is into here, and this is, I don't know if you've driven by there now, the new
Yep.
foundation is
Yep.
right in this area here.
So that's where the new foundation is?
Yep,
Okay.
and then I don't know if you drove up Golden Run, you can kinda see where these are necessary, it's thin there, and you
Yeah,
can see.
you see right into
And
the,
it gets really thick into there,
yep.
and that was our logic on that section.
Yeah, these look like pretty mature trees,
yeah, maybe the mix. I mean,
So what's shown in the pictures right now will stay?
Yes, and it's existing, and that's why we're saying that we don't think we need to do that because of all that vegetation that's there.
My guess is the requirements are because we didn't know what was gonna be cleared
Yeah,
out. at
yeah.
that time, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, there's, especially when you look at photo 3, there's quite a bit of
Right.
vegetation straight through there, so, in this area.
And there's 10 more years of growth there.
Yep.
And then 1 and 2,
1 and 2 are looking, are on this piece over here. One looking that way, 2 looking that way.
You know, one of the things on the,
oh, 1
if
is,
you're looking at the 2,
Oh, yeah, so looking at these trees. So this clump here is basically what this is?
well, this clump is to be planted that we're asking not to plant.
No, I read, because that's,
Yes.
you're saying these trees will replace that? This
Yes.
little stand here?
And also, there's another issue there, is if you're looking at that picture, like where the sign is looking up Sugar
oh,
Road,
the guy,
the visibility is horrible there when that growth grows in. We weed whack it down, and when the town runs the thing, you can see up there. These trees here will create a visibility. This growth in here, we're always trying to whack down and stay on top of, because you can't pull, I've almost caused accidents trying to pull out of it.
busy intersection.
Yeah, no, this, I mean, I think, again, both 1 and 2 show significant
Yeah,
vegetation.
I mean, I think it meets what our goal is, which is to keep,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Now, on the other part of it, this is where the, I know Bob's intent, and I know this was 10 years ago, I don't know if anybody was on the board then. Well, this is a meadow, there's an HOH to maintain it and to keep it meadow. So what our fear is now we're blocking the view that we've sold all these people here. And the same thing coming down from these few houses here. This lot 7 in particular really was upset when she saw the plan. So I'm trying to just preserve the view into the meadow. That's all I'm trying to do with these. These can stay because this house sits here, and this house here, it's here, so there's view that way. So there's, you know, like, we can
Is
have
that
trees
gonna
there.
look odd though, to have some trees along the road and then nothing?
Could we just thin it out,
Yeah.
potentially? Like, you know,
Do it every other?
or even every third or something? How far are these apart? Is that 75, is that 100
No,
feet?
that's, I mean, the scale is there, that looks
120?
30-ish.
30 to 50 maybe?
Yeah.
That's pretty, what's, I
So
thought it was,
50
I thought it was
trees.
75 feet,
You know, it's under the old subdivision rules and regs, I'd have to go back and look to see. what we
cause I think it's
used to require.
75 feet, that's what we were doing, right?
Yeah, it's either 75 or 50, I'm not
So,
sure.
I mean, this is 60, so I think if you cut out 2 of each
this
one,
one.
just every third, 1, 2, 3.
I mean, that at least just provides, cause I think it's kinda weird, you've got
Yeah.
trees right
Yeah.
here, and then there's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yep.
You know, so if we, yeah, do an
Take away,
area,
take away,
every,
I mean, do we want a
Wait.
couple place kind of near the property lines over
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, we could jump that. Well, there is a drainage swale there, so it'd be getting into people's
So we
property
can-
lines,
yeah,
but,
I'd keep it on the side that it's showing,
well, I was just trying to think that, well, first of all, that would give nicer cover overall.
yeah.
And we're also, you know, we're kind of keeping the kind of the shade and the trees and everything that were originally approved, and that everybody signed on for,
Yeah,
you know, but we're just kind
it
of
seems
spreading it out a
much,
little bit.
I think if that's like 75 feet, I'm fine with keep, however it works out, you know, like maybe 4 of these, so
I mean,
1,
I think I'd probably say,
4 of these, maybe.
well, I guess I'd say kind of go back to the applicant here to kind of look at, you know, where the houses and where the view lines.
Yeah,
And where can we put, you know, it might be that, you know, like, these 2 trees don't cause any view issues, so keep those, maybe give it a little bit of a gap, sort of, you know.
I,
so
That-
lots
just
of
kind of-
gaps, but
well,
maybe if we met out there
yeah.
and we could see, cause that's what I'm thinking, if we strategically, like maybe between the lot line there,
Yeah,
we can see the
Well,
view.
so I would do it a different approach, and
Okay.
I would just say, let's figure out how many number of trees and just do it evenly from
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Cause it's gonna look
Yeah,
odd
don't-
if you do
Okay.
this area,
Yeah.
you know, you can
Yeah.
put 2, but then you can't do, I mean, it's just gonna
Okay.
look odd. I would say, you know, I think there's a lot of
Spread out,
trees
yeah.
there, let's spread it out, you know, cut half of them.
there's 12, so go down to 4.
Oh, sorry,
Just
I
4?
started doing
Yeah,
what you
a
were
third, that's what I was saying, a third.
I was gonna say 6, but
Yeah, 4 seems.
Okay.
Should be tied to a certain distance, I would tie it to a certain distance every X number of feet.
I thought it was 75.
I'm just saying on the plan, if, you know, if we can kind of visualize.
what is it right now? What is it?
I'm gonna grab a scale and that way
Yeah.
we can
I mean, the scale shines, it looks like it's every 30 or 40 feet. I haven't seen any of that type like that.
And what are those
What-
trees gonna
I was
be?
just gonna ask that. That's
What?
exactly-
It-
What is
What
it
is-
gonna be?
what type
are
of
those
trees?
gonna be?
it's on the plan
Oh,
we've got
oh.
here, so.
It's a little bigger up in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recently learned that I need reading glasses, so any help is appreciated.
Oh, they-
So
there's a
some sugar
mixture
maple,
of
green
all of them.
ash, you know, wood spruce,
Oh, I see.
12-foot trees.
actually, these are all the
So
hardwoods,
right now,
so.
they're on center, 40 feet apart.
So 75,
we went
That's
to
basic, or
75.
even
Yeah.
75 or 80,
Yeah,
if, then you're just cutting it in
Well,
half.
that would get you to six then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd give you, yep,
Okay.
yep, so just cut it in half, say every 80 feet.
6, 8, every 80 feet, okay. Okay, that was 6 every 80 feet, and that, I see what you're trying to make sure we get the symmetrical.
Yes,
yeah, kind of,
yes,
kind of
yes.
even.
Right.
So that
And,
way,
and you know, you can look at, you know, wiggling at the whole
Yeah,
group of them a little bit to kind of maximize view there.
right, but when we go to do it, keep them
and I would
evenly
do the
spaced,
same
yeah.
thing up there, just
Cut it
every
in
80
half.
feet,
Cut it-
but
Okay.
keep it somewhat,
And I try to keep the ones on the far side of the circle there.
These here?
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
The one, this is, I'm fine with leaving them, the one thing is, this lady, this one here would be right in front of this picture window that was put in. That, if there's one, these here are the ones with.
can
with
we
that lady.
keep this one and
Yeah,
get
but
rid of
keep-
this one?
Yeah, we can, that's what I'm saying, I think that
Yeah.
one, if we get rid of that one, and these two will be the separation, and
That's
then,
fine, yeah.
and like
Here
those
and
two,
here.
I think that works.
Yep,
It
yeah.
looks like it's about 80 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can kind of go with the 80-foot, gap, and, but try to make it as symmetrical as possible, I think that's what,
And then, I think we're okay with changing this to existing trees. I don't know how you note that on the plans.
Yeah,
Just
those
take this out, I
areas.
guess, just,
Well, I think if we just say these are okay to be not planted,
correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
these 6 of them every 80 feet apart.
yep,
These, how do we word this one, cause they're, oh, same thing, every 80 feet apart.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so yeah, 4 or 5 every 80 feet apart.
Yep.
I mean, what I could do in this, cause it'll be a minor modification to the plan, I mean, what I could do is just say that are these proposed here?
Yes, and we were gonna keep them, cause it is very thin in there. I think there'd be headlights, and I think that's why these
I
would
think
be.
that would be good for
Yeah.
them anyway. Yeah. Otherwise, you're looking, right, as it is, we're looking right in these people's backyard.
Yeah.
Right, it's just that even if these spread out a little, or even if a couple of those went a little further, I know these people would be happy with that.
Okay, so I will move that we allow the,
Excuse
yep,
me, sorry, I
okay,
didn't
no,
mean to
no, no,
interrupt you.
go ahead, go ahead.
Just one real quick question, not to be too anal, but just out of curiosity, I mean, when the leaves actually fall, cause in this area here, it looks like once the leaves may fall, there'll be some openings, in what appears right now to be pretty heavily vegetated.
What did you do?
Photo 3,
So you're coming around from this angle here.
yeah, so it looks like sort of in this area, I'm just curious.
I think the intent of these trees was for screening, not for, aesthetics. And it's, the headlights aren't really gonna bother anyone there, but we could try to find maybe 3 of them there with.
I mean, any tree that you put there.
Where's the house here? Is up here?
It's tucked up into
That's
this
the-
corner
that's the-
here.
So is that this house here?
Okay, so
So it's actually pretty far.
Turn
Yeah, that house is actually this one.
Oh, I'm totally disoriented, okay.
Well, it's because you're looking through the trees there and it's kind of.
Oh, okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
alright,
so-
okay.
Three is if I'm standing here, and then I'm looking,
Right.
and this, oh, I see.
It's
Yeah.
coming all the way
Okay.
through to there.
Okay,
Yeah, it's showing there.
okay, yeah, so I guess I'm fine with that then, if that's really the closest house you see.
There was another thing that's not on the plan, but if I can, these 4 trees here, the way they, I think it was left at the meeting with Bob was to talk to the homeowner and to see what they wanted to do. He was concerned about lights there.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to him, it's been a while, but he's not sure what he wants there, because he actually has a couple of them. I'm surprised there's a couple of trees there, and I think this might be a dead one. What I was thinking of doing was trying to trade him, instead of 4 trees, try to get him a big one and replace the big one that he had there.
Well, that's on the plan, so if the owner wants to do something different, then either a letter or, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it says review final locations with the owner, so.
making a decision without hearing from that owner.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll talk with him, we'll come up with something,
That'd be
and we'll get something with, in writing, we'll both in agreement, and I'll
Yeah,
come
yeah,
see you guys
yeah.
on it, so. You know, when you draw this on paper, it looks good, but it's, I don't think it's the problem he thinks it is now. Cause he was even talking with me, once, can we maybe tree some shrubs around the house, but I'll come up with something with him, I just wanna let you know there will be a conversation with him.
Okay. Okay, so I will move, let's see if we can form this.
I was just gonna say, do you want to wait to take your vote? Cause I actually have to draft the minor modification
Okay.
anyway.
That's okay.
We can kinda go through what that motion will be, I'll draft it, and then at the next meeting, you don't have to come back, I'll just
Okay.
have them actually vote and sign it, and then I'll send it to you guys. to
Awesome.
report.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Oh, no, that's great.
Crunch to get this done.
No, I mean, maybe we're trying to get a better deal on trees this time of year, but if this runs in the spring, it runs in the spring.
Cause I could get it to you like the day after our next planning board meeting,
That's-
which would be the
Which I think is in 2 weeks,
October.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you can do, that would be fine, yeah, this is, that's fine. Well, especially because I know what you've talked about, I can actually start pricing the trees and
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you
work it
kinda
out.
know at this
So,
point.
so I know what's going on, we just need to formalize it, so.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, so that's no problem at all, so.
Okay.
So I think we'd be looking at removing the additional, what are those? Those
I
are
said trees
spruce.
in photos 1 through 5.
Well,
I was gonna say this, the 16 trees to be removed according to said plan dated da-da-da-da. At the entrance, something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, whether it's at the Golden Road Sugar Road corner.
Yeah.
And then at the entrance off of Sugar, just label the area and stuff. And then changing these to every 80 feet, but maintaining a mix of,
yeah,
of trees here and there.
And so something along the lines of, proposed street trees along road to be modified to be every 80 feet off center, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, approximately for 80 feet, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, because I agree with you, we want this, including these two, so we're gonna work that in to be a nice even stretch
Yes,
there.
that's
For,
what, yeah.
for the, symmetry of it,
Yeah.
so, yeah, that
You
makes
know what
sense.
might even be easier, I don't know if Bob wants to spend the money to update this one more time, but maybe just easier to
Just give us a revised
whole
plan.
new, plan that shows the trees every 80 feet and then these removed.
But because
And then I
essentially
That's what I'll
what,
do.
and we could just reference the plan that way.
actually, I think we wanna, you probably wanna.
Oh, yeah, so we
space
wanna
the
make
whole
sure
way.
we get this spaced
Yeah,
out.
yeah, because you
Yeah,
don't wanna
I would be
cluster-
consistent
yeah.
and just, yeah.
What I'll do is I will have Greg get you a plan
That'd be probably.
before the next meeting,
Okay.
so you
Yes,
have
then
a
we can vote
plan,
on it, yes.
and you can
Yeah.
vote on
And
the
then we
plan.
just vote on the plan.
That's what
Yeah.
I think, these, you don't have these highlighted, but we could probably follow the same.
Yeah,
No, but that's what
Right,
we're
that's
saying,
what I'm
it's-
just
the
saying,
whole
we're
thing will go
even
every
this
80
one
feet.
here, so it almost should jump
So
from
fix
there
it.
to there,
So that it's a consistent,
Yeah.
yeah.
every 80 feet along the entire way, so it doesn't look odd.
Perfect.
Yeah,
And then we'll get rid of this one, and then we'll do the same thing, cause this one and this one could stay easily. This.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, you're gonna get rid of that if
maybe
you're keeping
even-
those two, cause then you're gonna go
Yeah.
80 feet, if you keep this, you'll go 80 feet.
Yeah,
So you're gonna get rid of this, you get rid of that, and then, you have that.
right, here, and then
And then
that
that
should
gives her
really,
the-
that satisfies everything she wants to
Yeah,
try to
so
do,
then
yeah.
it should be okay.
And the goal
Awesome.
here is to work towards road acceptance, right? That's what Greg was telling me on the
Yes.
phone. So not this town meeting, potentially the next one.
Right, I don't think we'll make the
For
next
the
one.
paving and everything, okay.
Right, we're gonna try to pave this year, but we've hit a little bit of a glitch that
Yeah.
we're trying to work on that, to do with glazing of the, how long the road's been down, and we're trying to work out something there. There was one other thing, am I taking too much time? If, one other thought I had, I don't, this sidewalk was put in once to this point, and then it wasn't here because the septic system was built. I'd like to eliminate this walking path, and my main reason is if you, we've done it in other subdivisions, no one ever maintains it, it just gets grown over time. But what I'm concerned with, this one here, I wish I brought with this just comes really close to their house, on this house here.
That's a bigger discussion.
Yeah,
You know,
not
we
okay
have it
with
on the
eliminating
agenda.
the sidewalk.
Okay, no, and that's, and like I said,
And if we did, we would do like a sidewalk in lieu of, you know, potentially we divert the funds or something. So it's a bigger discussion than we can do in 5 minutes.
No, and that's, and I figured that too, and like I said, I don't mind putting it in, we one of the last things I do, because I made the mistake of doing one too early and it cost me a fortune to maintain it, but,
Okay.
I just wanted to mention it, and I haven't even talked to this homeowner yet.
I think we are open to sidewalk discussions, but
Yeah.
it's just a bigger discussion.
Yeah, just not tonight,
Yeah.
it's, biting off more than I can chew, right? You guys don't want these, cause this will get confusing.
No.
Yeah.
You know what, I'll keep one just for my
Okay,
record,
you
if
can
that's
have them all
okay.
if you want.
Yeah, it's okay.
And you have your copy of the photos?
I have
You have a copy of that?
You want the extra of these two? You know, I found it like too many plans around, then you get confused which one you're working off.
So I always write super C on the top of my plans that are old, so I remember.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Sure.
I'll talk to Greg in the morning and I'll make sure we get something as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you, take care.
Alright. Next up, we have Walter and Erickson, 147 Wing Hill Road, common driveway, the planning board to review, revised as-built plan, remaining construction work, and possible long release schedule.
And as you brought, excuse myself and even,
This right. What's going on, guys?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Attorney Kevin Erickson on behalf of Built Best Construction LLC. With me tonight, Mr. Walter Erickson, manager of Built Best Construction. Since the August 14th meeting, when this board tasked us with 2 final items to complete, we went, after September 1st, I think it was September 10th, increased the size of the swale per Ducharme and Gillis's plan. And we also hand seeded.
So you lengthen that.
Yes, and widened it too. And hand seeded that swale area as well as the common driveway again, and overseeding it. We also had Ducharme and Gillis finalize the as-built plan to reflect that, and also to add some grade contours on the first 40 feet of the common driveway. What we found was that the difference in elevation from the intersection of Long Hill and 40 feet back was 2.8 feet, which works out to be 7%, slightly less than the average of 8 before. So that's been added to the plan too now, so it's part of the final as-built. So we've submitted a request to this board for acceptance of the final as-built and asked for the release of the bond.
Erica, do you have Fred's email with his list of things?
I had his most recent report in your packet.
Okay, so this has everything that was in the email.
It should, yeah.
Let's see. So, swell on the pavement. Swells continuously established. So Fred, under pavement, you're closed out, you have no other issues, or?
I'm sorry, under what?
So I'm looking at the latest on the pavement dated 10/7, as you said, swale was completed and seeding. Is the swale supposed to be under the pavement category?
Well, it's interesting.
No, but it's only because the issue was the pavement, so it stayed under there, under that heading.
Because it was running over the pavement?
Yeah, we put it there to mitigate that flow.
The comment initially, the issue initially was under the pavement section, so it stayed under there.
Okay.
That was off the pavement.
So you reviewed the latest extension and they did, you know, what we suggested, or what you suggested?
On that swale, yes.
Yeah. Have you seen it in action, or?
No,
Erica, have you seen?
That would have been smart for me to go out today and take a look, but I unfortunately did not.
Do you guys see it working
Yeah,
better?
we have.
the swale's much more defined now.
Mhm.
The first one was kind of a gentle slope.
Yeah,
The second one that we just did, to conform with Chairman Dillis's plan, is very well defined. And we took some pictures of it, and,
I do actually.
and
So this was-
it's grassed pretty well now, so it's working. It picks up everything that's coming across.
Yeah, last week, after the, rain, you can see this, the water's not sheeting across into that drain manhole anymore.
so where does it end? It ends even with the manhole or a little? You extended it,
It goes up past the telephone pole. and
oh, all the way up here?
Yeah, and it discharges into that detention area, the 4-bay area.
And they're similar pictures, not exactly,
Oh, okay.
exactly
okay.
the same. I think they're from slightly different areas, but here you can see that drain manhole a little bit better.
So it definitely picks up the water that was shedding off that hillside before and crossing the berm and going over. Actually, I can show you on this phone here is the swale starts.
Oh,
right
yeah, I
here.
see it now, yep, yep.
And it's much more well defined. I should have
That's a
printed this.
better.
I should have printed that out.
And that's all new grass already growing.
Yes. The grass grew in on, well, on that side.
Under drainage, Fred, your last note was, yes, the plan shows the low point of the cul-de-sac to be downstation from where the channel was installed. This is also evidenced by the accumulation of silt approximately 10 feet downstation from the installed channel. The channel should be reinstalled at low point. So where exactly are we talking about, Fred, now?
You can show you on the plan, and then I'll show you.
There's the other sheet, please.
Here, yeah.
So it'd be- Look, see this that
Yep.
contour? So
Yep.
that shows the low points of this in here,
Uh-huh.
and channels up in that facility right around where there's the bend scales.
So this is, all the water's running down into here, and that channel is missing it.
Yeah, that wasn't a channel that was proposed,
Uh-huh.
first of all. That's, everything's supposed to be graded off in that direction,
Uh-huh.
but it was puddling in here. This is back
Yep,
2 months ago, whatever, so we put a channel in there,
I remember
a
that.
stone channel, but it's still, the silt, this shows the low point, this as-built grades, this as-built contour right here,
Uh-huh.
shows the low point right about here, but that channel is right at the edge of this turn, the edge of pavement, and then the silt accumulating down where it looks like the low point.
I looked at it though, Fred, last couple of times during the rainstorm, and the contour, you know, those contour lines are 2-foot contours, so I don't think it clearly represents the difference of 6 inches or 4 inches. When you and I were out there, we noted where the puddles were, and that's why we put the swale there. And I went out there, and there's not a puddle there now during the rain, so I think that it is in the correct spot, to be honest with you. That 2-foot contour may not show that, but it's a 2-foot contour, and it's not gonna show, you know, a slight difference in grade.
Where, I'm sorry, where are you saying that the low spot is? Is this it, that you're saying? Or am I misreading this?
So I was saying that
Yeah,
it points to
yeah.
here,
Right
So
about
the
there.
low spot's right here.
Right, and this channel is right, the channel they're putting is right past the
You
curve.
can see the channel here where that rock is.
You see where the silt is here? So that's a buildup of silt, okay,
Yeah.
which is more in line with what the grade is showing. Yes, both contours.
So what was the channel you built?
Right, what was it?
No, yeah, what was it? What did you?
A
Just a
stone,
little
they
swale.
cut through,
Yeah, into
the grass
So it's
along
just
the
kinda
edge
like
here
this?
was higher and not allowing it to sheet flow across.
Okay,
So we cut an opening in it
I got you, I
and
got you.
and lined it with crushed stone.
So can you just, so you're asking, can you extend the crushed stone just a year? So then,
No, I was, from what I'm seeing on this and this, okay, the silt and
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
these are about the same.
Yes, you're saying it was
And to
much,
put it there at not
just add
really,
it.
right, cause it seems like it's, I haven't seen it,
How far back
That's
does this
me.
channel go?
that's only 3 feet
It's
long.
not that far. I mean, we
It's
could do
only-
that, but I don't think it's really part of that. I mean, I'd be happy to go out there sometime again, and if we have to move it back 10 feet, we can do that, but
I have not seen it puddle, I will say that, I'm going by
Just
the
the
sediment
contour.
and the contour. And I know what you're saying, Walter, but that still is a contour, there was a 2-foot contour, or a 1/2-foot contour, whatever, and it shows the low point.
I know, but you know, those two foot contours.
No, that's irrelevant. At 2 foot, it doesn't matter what the interval is, it's still the contour.
I mean, but this silt buildup would be from prior puddling, right?
Normally it is, right?
Yeah.
But that could have been built up before we even cut this in.
Wouldn't it be extended out to all the way over there, though? I mean, just looking at it, it seems like stuff was settling there.
It's just, I mean, this was on, I think, Monday, right, after the rain, and we did observe.
Yeah.
That's all we're saying. And again, you know, I think this spot was, we identified in the field on, when we were out there before the August 14th, so.
So Fred, your opinion is that you should add another channel?
From what I see in that, and I guess we'd have to, the only way to justify it one way or the other is to wait for another rainstorm, make sure we get out there and.
On Saturday.
I won't be, I'm away tomorrow, I won't be here the rest of the week myself.
Tomorrow night should be the true test. All right, well, we'll just keep that one in mind. What else we got here? Following item was observed during a random inspection on June 11th. So these last two items, Fred, are closed or?
No.
No, they're open still? On the
No,
premises?
they're still open, and do they have my email, Erica?
Well, that's
Only your
what I was
report,
asking.
only your report.
Okay.
I saw your email, yeah, that was, had,
Did you have different information in your email
Yeah,
from?
yeah. It's more of a,
an action item list.
right, of the email really had to do with the review of the as-built and the last inspection of what, of the plan, the review of the as-bilt's not in the inspection report.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Not everything's, the review of the as-built wouldn't be in the inspection report, so there's the email also, which I have a copy here, but you said you have it, Eric?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up.
Oh, I don't know if you just want me to quickly make a copy?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I can go make copies. I apologize, I figured everything was in the inspection report.
Did she send that? Okay, here we go. Yeah, 7 items, right, Fred?
At least so she took it away from me.
Yeah, I have it.
But as soon as she gets side copies, it'd be easier if everybody.
Yeah,
had it in front
I've
of
got
them.
it as well.
So anyway, so on the small area pavement and the turnaround, he can shoot up, Walter claims it was caused by trash. So, which turnaround are we talking about on this one?
The actual end of the road.
Oh, the end of
So
the
the
That's not
driveway.
new, that's not June 11th of this year, that's
That's
actually
18,
from
yeah.
18, so we've talked about that actually quite a bit
Yeah,
in the past. It's not, I think it was
yeah.
aesthetic, and there's nothing we could do with, just kind of
Right.
replace.
Yes.
So,
Thank you. And then portions of the proposed grass area.
And that's more defined in the
Yeah,
email.
yeah. All right, so Fred sent an email. First 40 feet of driveway has a profile slope greater than 4% of private maximum starting along Hill Road, the first 8 feet has a slope of 3.2%, the next 11 has 8.3, the next 9 has 8.7, and the next 10 has 8.3. Although, didn't we just say it was 7% in the as-built?
Yeah,
That's
No,
overall.
No,
That's
average. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kevin
that's
says
the
from
average.
one to the other, but it starts out more level than it drops off.
Yep.
And I believe, just for the sake of detail, I believe you did it over 40 feet, right, Kevin?
Yeah, correct.
But it's only 37 feet.
I mean, on
That's
that
the
one,
plan. I'm just saying, that's
I don't
what that
think any
was.
of us want the whole driveway ripped up, so I don't know about what we can or should do about that one. I don't know.
Well, if you remember at the last meeting, we had said that we had kind of shot our own grades and thought it was less than 8% on the average of 40 feet, which is how the regulation reads.
Yeah.
So we did this sort of to, kind of prove that out. But this board had agreed back even in May
Yeah.
that it wasn't a safety issue. Ducharme Gillis had written in their report that it functioned as intended.
Yeah, so, I guess I'd get through it. I know the residents wrote that there was some concerns about that, but let's go through them all once. Number 2 is some of the trees and shrubs do not meet the size specifications shown on the design plan.
We talked about that last time, remember we
Yep.
overplanted, and also some of the shrubs that are showing as undersized. Actually, that's a detailing error on Ducharme Gillis's plans, because they don't grow to the size that's shown on the, plan. But in any event, I mean, that was something that we discussed quite a bit.
Yeah. Turnouts, so none of them quite meet the 25-18. Me personally, if they're 6, 0, 9, 0, and 12, 0, all seem pretty close. The concerning one is the one near the bridge, right?
It was 25, it's
19 feet long. It seems like I don't know, it seems like a sort of important one, because if somebody's on the bridge and you're going to take turns, so. I know you have the curbing there.
That's what it was, we talked about that too, the curbing they put on top of the pavement, the curbing's about a foot and a half wide, so it took up some space.
That one is concerning. I don't know. Anybody on the board?
No, I think we talked about that last time,
Yeah.
that one needs to get fixed.
I know we talked
Remember
about
the board
it.
telling us to fix it last time?
Yeah, no, we discussed that one.
I know we discussed it.
All
I'm sure
4 are out, right, we're gonna let 3 of them slide, fix the one that's.
I'm not
But
sure.
you didn't say that on the 14th, though.
I'm not sure we made a final
We
determination.
were, yeah, no, we
discussed
didn't
it.
vote on anything, but that was gonna be our recommendation, that was the.
But you didn't convey that to
Sentiment.
us on the 14th, I don't think, right? Because we talked about the crushed, possibly doing the crushed stone, and there was a determination made that that wasn't something that we were going to do. I know it is the largest deviation. It's sufficient in width. It's 19.4.
It's substantially shorter than it should be.
I know, I'm just, from my recollection of the August 14th meeting, it wasn't discussed that this board wanted that one to be.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I know we talked about it, I'm wondering why we didn't make a final determination, but
I think we didn't
agree.
have, I don't know, we didn't have a final report from Fred, but, I mean, that can't stand,
Yeah.
no way.
The residents have concerns about that one as well.
So we talked about the.
So what's the deal with the telephone pole? Is that like in the way or something of extending it? Also has a telephone pole in front of it. Curb.
On the before, as you're coming, the telephone pole would be before it,
Okay,
so would that be in the way of
turning into
extending
it.
it back up towards Long Hill Road?
Is
It's
there
right,
room-
it's right at the turn into it is right at the telephone pole.
Is there room on the other side of the pole to?
It's down, as you continue down, yes.
Okay. So it'd be on the other side then. Oh, okay. Number 4 is,
We just talked about that, the channel at the end of it.
yeah. without going much, okay. Number 5, Walter Smith proposed from catch basins incorporated, but it's not noted.
That's been addressed.
And that,
Because I saw in your inspection.
and that
report
got
you said-
addressed,
We're good,
this was Monday, and that got addressed Tuesday.
So we're good with that.
So that's, yes, that's all set.
The soils, detention basins, and forebays must be removed, and vegetation removed.
For the most part, it's been done, it's the, swale on the left side from maybe station 11 on 11 or so, on the left side going down to forebay number 3. So it's swale, that portion of the swale, all the other swales are cut and mowed,
Okay.
and that forebay is not, hasn't been cleared, but all the other basins were cleared. Everything was cut down, the other basins. So it's really that swale from, I wanna say station 11 to the end on the left side, which goes to forebay number 3, which is also on the left side of the end of the driveway.
You're saying from basically station 11 to this permit?
Yes, in that forebay.
Yeah, so just right along here.
Yeah, all the others have been maintained and so forth, other basins, other, swales along the project.
And then finally, there's still a large amount of areas, spots that are weedy and or bare. Fred specifically said, along the right side of the driveway from station 2 +0 to station 3 +25. It's mostly bare.
It was, Ed had green vegetation in there, but now it's just about all there. This is basically from the driveway of the existing home
Uh-huh.
down to that turnout we've been talking about
Okay,
on the right side.
okay.
But it looks like,
Yeah, that grass didn't take there, for sure.
but it looks like it's prepped to take grass that's out there, it is.
So the grass weeds are spotty adjacent to the guardrails. Grass weeds are spotty along the right side of the driveway from 1025 to station 1125, which is what, near the last house?
No, it's opposite the last house on the left.
The last house.
Then there's 2 more houses at the end,
Yep,
so
okay,
opposite.
alright. Okay, Eric.
But, just, Eric,
Yep.
sorry, Kevin had said that when the swale was built and all, and they see that it grew in well, and that grew in very well, at the same time, I think that same day, all these other spots were seeded again, if I remember correctly, but that one took very well, and has probably less grass on the site, but these other areas don't.
Okay. Is there anything that we didn't touch on?
No.
So I don't wanna open it up to tons of comments, but do the rest, I mean, cause we got the residents' letter, which I assume everybody signed on for. If somebody wants to just speak on it quick or something, if anybody's interested.
You just wanna go down, let's go down the list, or?
Well, I mean, I guess we read
Yeah, I
it.
guess-
Can you touch on stuff that you feel like we didn't address?
One of the things, the turnouts you guys did address, and ideally, we'd like them to have them all the correct size, cause they are difficult to use, and, we live there, and having another foot or 2 on the side would help,
Yeah,
but especially the one that's 6 feet long. And the
6
curb,
feet short.
yeah.
6 feet short, sorry, but the curb around it, the curb's about 8 inches, so it's not a 1.5 foot curb, it doesn't take up that much space, but it doesn't make it hard to pull in, but it's still very short.
Yeah.
Also, so that's it for the turnouts, I think. In terms of the swale, I know the requirement was to have the road be crowned. As Fred has stated, the swale was a workaround to try to get around ripping up the driveway.
Yep.
And I think, now that it's deeper, it certainly looks better, but we won't really know if water is still sheeting across the driveway and bleeding through that curb and over that curb until we get snow, because that's when we really saw the issue. Snow buildup, melt, and rain in the winter and the spring.
Anything else? We good? The rest we're good?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, I think, I won't go through all the individual issues because you have them, but I think our general feeling about releasing the bond is that yes, they have completed some of the things, we have the emergency signs, all that, there is the plants, it seems like that's better. But when you look at the bond that's being held and the issues that are still up in the air, like the ones Kevin just mentioned are the big ones, if the workaround doesn't work, and if it's decided that the slope of the driveway needs to be fixed, then that money needs to be held 1.5% for, so basically, we don't think the bond should be given back now because there's too many things that are still up in the air and might need to be fixed and would be very costly to fix if it's needed to be done. And things like the grading, the slope, you know, if you look back at the special permit, it says if they want changes to the plan, they have to have a public hearing and get it approved. I don't think any of that's been done, so they're just like sliding through with, oh, well, we double, you know, it's not what it is, but what it's supposed to be, but it's good enough. I mean, I just don't see how that's okay to do, you know, to the residents that then have to live with it. So that's our general feeling.
And Mr. Chairman, can I follow up on that, please? For the record, my name is Paul Haverty. I'm an attorney with Blattman, Bobrowski and Haverty in Concord. I'm here on behalf of Kevin and Melissa Solen tonight.
Okay.
I do have a significant concern with that exact issue. The board has indicated that it may be willing to grant some concessions with regards to how things were completed, but you do have a specific provision in your decision that states that if the common driveway and/or its drainage appurtenances are not built in substantial conformance with the approved plans or in accordance with subsequent changes approved by the board after a public hearing, the special permit will be rendered invalid. And what I'm concerned is that my clients and their neighbors will be put into a situation where there could actually be a zoning enforcement brought against them because you've got a roadway that was not done in conformance with the plans that were approved by the board. So to the extent that there are significant alterations being considered to be allowed by the board, there should at least be a formal decision after public hearing by this board that actually modifies the plan so that my clients are not subject to this potential liability.
Well, I can actually speak to that a little bit. You have a specific regulation pertaining to special permits issued for common driveways serving 3 or more lots, which gives this board the specific right to determine whether or not if changes exist on the as-built from the existing conditions on the special permit to accept those changes. We've already submitted evidence into the record by our engineer's review that, let's take the slope for example, that the deviation in slope that we're talking about, the 3% deviation over the 40 feet is acceptable. Town engineer has also reviewed that and determined that it's not a safety issue. If you look at what that 3% deviation actually means, it's 14 inches over 40 feet, or 0.9 centimeters every foot of run. It's not a substantial deviation. 8.3% slope is acceptable by the ADA for handicap ramps. This is an acceptable slope, and perfectly within the board's purview to accept under the regulations, without having to have a new public hearing. This is done all the time. As-builts are not always per the original plan, and that's why in your infinite wisdom, the regulations do allow for the acceptance of these deviations.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could follow up on that, although your regulations do allow you to accept deviations, I don't believe they allow you to accept deviations that do not comply with the express provisions of your regulations without a formal hearing to grant those waivers. In this instance, you're talking about deviations, you have a requirement of no more than a 4% slope over the first 40 feet, and we're talking about a 7% slope. That does not comply with your regulations. You're talking about the size of those turnouts, they're required by your regulations, they don't comply with it. So again, we're talking about issues where we're in non-compliance with your regulations, and I wanna make sure that my clients are protected and that there is a decision in place that actually does not subject them to that potential future liability.
Liability from,
Anyone can come to the building inspector and request zoning enforcement on any property.
Of course, they have to prove standing.
They
as
do
Mr.
not
Hadley
require
knows.
standing.
home
But
intent.
they do not require standing unless there's an appeal brought by them if the building inspector denies that enforcement. But if the building inspector looks at a request for zoning enforcement that anybody in the town can bring, and determines that in fact something has been done that is not in conformance with zoning, in which in this case it would be, because you didn't get an approval for waivers of regulations that are applicable, then the building inspector issues zoning enforcements. And
So,
now-
okay, Erica, so the 8%, that's in the common driveway rules and regulations? 8%,
It's in our bylaw, actually.
so it's in the bylaw.
It's the design guidelines underneath this specific section,
Yeah.
250-17B, which reads verbatim, if the driveway has been constructed as described in the special permit, or if changes exist and the planning board feels all changes are acceptable, then the board will sign the plans. There's no ambiguity here in, respectfully, this notion that someone's going to come back and say that you're not in compliance with the special permit when the board's accepted it under your authority and the regulations. It's extremely far-fetched. I see it as nothing more than Mr. Happy, who's very late to this process, by the way. We've been going through this process for quite some time. The slope has been known to this board since April of this year. This is something that is entirely within the scope of these regulations.
Okay, well, so I still do see that this, all along I have been, it's good to see that the swales work, and I have been concerned about the crown. So that's one item that we have to keep in mind here, the swale and the crown. The other, definitely that turnout, I think, needs to be fixed and extended to what it should be, that first turnout. That's my opinion, I don't know what the rest of the board feels. As for other items, it sounds like adding that channel isn't a lot of work at the end.
We can do the channel, we'll do the
Yeah.
channel, I'll meet with Fred or somebody out there to see exactly where it should be.
Yeah.
Change that turnaround, that first turnaround, so that we
Yeah.
get the appropriate length. And we can reseed that one section on the right-hand side, where it is bare. I don't know why it's bare,
Yeah.
it was greener before.
Yeah, Erica, just as an example, in common driveways, or I guess in subdivisions, they require 24-foot wide road, and we always waive it to be 20 feet. Is that 24-foot wide, is that part of the subdivision rules and regs, or is that part of bylaws?
No, it's a regulation.
So what I'm trying to get at is, I know we can't waive bylaws, but it's part of the process, Is this, I guess, is it out of our hands, the 8%? Or can we accept it as is?
I think we probably should have town council weigh in, just in terms of procedurally, if we should hold it, we should open up the hearing and go through an amendment to the special permit to allow for those deviations.
Mhm.
I think that would be prudent, just to
I mean,
have them.
just because I
provide
know
some
we
guidance on
we
that.
can't waive bylaws, we can waive rules and regs, we can kind of waive those just under our authority.
I don't look at it that way. I think that you're not waiving the bylaw, you're accepting a deviation. And again, in my mind, a de minimis deviation.
And that's in substantial compliance with the design
Yeah.
and attained to and tested to by the design engineer.
Thoughts?
My thought is, I'm not a lawyer, so, I appreciate what both of you have brought up. I understand both sides of it. I just don't have the wherewithal to say which one is more appropriate, so I would like to go to just town council, see what they say. If they say it's within our purview to go ahead and just, vote on this, that's fine. But if they say that it should be an actual waiver issued, I think that's the way we should do it.
Or if we have
Or-
to go to a hearing.
That's what I mean, like you would
Yeah.
issue a waiver as part of an open hearing, so
Yeah.
I don't feel
I agree.
like I could
Mhm.
make an appropriate decision,
I agree.
just, it's,
Um,
yeah.
So, we're gonna ask town council about that.
I mean, I'm not trying to belabor this any longer, and I appreciate everything,
Yeah.
actually, especially all of you residents coming and for all the information you guys have done, but I just don't wanna make a decision that puts anyone in.
Well, right,
harm's
I mean,
way.
it might even just be out, I don't wanna overstep our bounds.
Exactly.
I don't wanna waive something that we don't have the right to waive.
just one other thing, so I understand what you're saying, there's the legal part, and that has to be worked out, I'm not a lawyer either, I don't understand, but there's also just back to the swale, back to the leaving trash there, there's concrete, there's asphalt still there, there's silt fence that have been buried for years. Why would the board grant these exceptions to an applicant that has showed such poor record through the years that this has gone on? It's not like they've done everything to, right up to this, and this is the one flaw. This is every single time they come here, there's something.
Well, I think I have a punch list, I don't think we're just letting things go by.
Right, but I'm saying the applicant is saying that, oh, you guys can waive it, but you can look at it legally, but you can also just look at it, we're residents that have to live with the mess they've left
Yeah.
all over and over, so why not hold the
Alright.
bond in
You know,
the winter?
It's hyperbolic, and I understand that, there's been a lot of frustration here, there's no question. We have absolutely been working with this board for the last 7 months, even longer since we started the rework of the as-built. I did happen to see, shortly before this meeting, one picture that showed one piece of asphalt. I have no clue how that asphalt got near that silt fence, I honestly don't. It's the first time I saw it, and I don't even know where that picture was taken. The other thing I'll say is that silt fence, that has to be there to a
Can I just ask, I just wanna ask one question. Walter and Lauren, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys just walked the road together and pointed out, concerns, or is,
No,
No.
when I've tried calling, I don't get any responses, so.
can we a lot of this stuff seems like it's easy stuff to do if you were, can you guys please just plan?
None of that silt fence can be removed until we get a certificate of
can I
compliance
actually-
from the conservation.
When do you anticipate getting a certificate of
It
compliance?
takes 2 years for the vegetation to plant growth on the wetland purification area. We've already been out there with the Conservation
But it's not
Commission's consultants, and they'll be coming out again next year.
But they won't let you remove the silt fence, cause isn't it
It's
established?
supposed to stay there for 2 years.
But it's not working because it's buried, so in the permit, it says it has to be maintained, it hasn't been.
Frankly, I think it should come out too, because it's all vegetated, it's all stable, it doesn't have
Is
any
that-
real purpose, but
Can you bring that up with the Concom to see if you can get relief to?
I can talk to the Conservation Commission about it.
They've asked them to clean it up,
No,
To
they
make-
have never asked us to. do
not
that.
to remove it, to
Yeah.
make
Alright,
it
just
usable.
talk to me.
To make it usable. They've requested that it be made usable over and over again at almost every meeting, and it isn't done.
Yeah, and in Erica's email, it's in the documents that the fence should be up and working if it's gonna be there,
Yeah,
not buried,
and
just left.
part of my comment is, it looks like this area is established, so it would seem like it could be removed and just get it out of there, but that's not a decision we can make, that
Right.
is the Concom, so, I don't know if it's just me that can send to her
We can
and
talk.
see if
Yep, we
she'd
can
be
do that.
willing.
Alright, so
I don't wanna overstep.
we have, bond wise, I think we're holding 30 something, 32,000. So you said, take care of the channel.
Then we
Turnaround's
just-
gonna, what?
That's a channel at the end of the,
Yeah,
Walter suggested that him and I go out there. If I may say so, Walter, I think if you have Dushan Dillis locate the low point, maybe that is still the low point, but it has to be done by survey or by visual. You might as well just have them locate that low point. If it's where it is, you're all set, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think that's,
is that easier?
this low point is the low point.
Yep. We
I
can do
will
that.
happily join you, I've never been invited on to walk it, I would happily do that with them.
I mean, there's just a lot of animosity in the room.
Yeah, it's 3 years overdue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you guys, if there's easy things to do and, we can make some people happy, I don't know. If that's what it takes, just get together, I don't know. So we said channel,
Sorry, Eric,
yeah,
Mr. Chairman, can I mention one other thing? On the
one
list
last
of-
thing, yeah,
What's that?
yeah, one last thing.
The manhole and the catch basins.
Mhm.
So the manhole that was paved over, and paving was done
Mhm.
way back during the night. Fred wasn't there for 2 steps of fixing that manhole.
Yep,
So we wanna make sure that survive the winter, because we didn't see a, infrared machine used, at least when we were there. I know when they say it on the receipt, but we didn't see it, and that's something that would cost us a lot of money to fix if that breaks up over the winter.
So they ripped it up and put the ring in, right?
We submitted a bill that proved that the infrared was used.
And, just along those lines, with the as-built, they, they're small, apparently maybe I need tape glasses. The as-bilt's done and you've looked at it, so it shows all the pipes and the slopes and everything, and everything looks good?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So I think just to go back to the original question, that was brought up before with the catch basins and stuff like that, we wanted to make sure everything was sloping the right way and all that other type of stuff. So I think we do have the as-built now that at least shows that, with regard to the catch basins and everything. So, whether it's winter or spring or summer, I mean, it should work.
That's
Yeah.
not what he's talking about.
Oh, okay,
though.
sorry, did I miss?
He's talking about that this patch pavement got installed well enough that will withstand, won't break apart. So you want to see it go through winter, right, Kevin?
Yeah, and I think it was required that you be there for that,
Right.
for those steps, and it was done without him being there, which has been
But I
pattern
thought-
over the past couple of years.
So
Did
Did
they
try to
submit it
coordinate, I
or
really don't wanna
something?
go down that road again, I think we've already talked about
Yeah.
that quite a bit.
I think the point is I think we just wanna make sure that it makes it through the winter, that it's structurally maintains the bridge and everything, and that it, if there's something that has to be fixed, and then there's no money left to fix it, basically.
Alright,
And
so
the catch
let's,
basins did fill up with
Alright.
the water almost to the top, and it actually came down to a normal level, and then it was cleaned out. Everything was said to be okay.
have you checked the
So
flow
we don't
of
know if
that?
that actually solved the issue or not.
They're at the catch basins, as Kevin just said, the water levels in the catch basins have been fine since
It was
the
clean.
date of the cleaning.
Okay, alright,
They were,
good,
they were fine before the cleaning.
okay. So, okay, let's wrap this up. So, we're gonna locate the low point and determine where the channel should be. You're gonna you're gonna extend the turnaround.
Yes,
You're gonna reseed that bare hand side
on
of
the
the,
right hand side, yes.
we're gonna
What
talk
about,
to.
what about, this- I'm sorry, the other pieces too, can we just do everything that was like listed, like, just, there's 3 things on there that need to get received, and if you're gonna be there to come do it, can you just do it
Was
all?
it, well, grass,
Just do all things.
could you, yeah, with your seating,
I think there was only one area that was bad.
so he said that section, then Fred said the grass,
I think it's all along the
spotting
same
adjacent
section.
to the guardrail.
Side.
Some of it ends up getting a little bit more grass.
I'm just
than-
saying, just, if you can do it all.
I mean,
It's not-
well, I just got my lawn seeded, so now's a good time to seed. Spotted adjacent to the grass, are spotted along the right side of the driveway from station, oh, so that's at the end, 10:25 to station 11:25. You know the area?
That's opposite, it's opposite the septic system, adjacent to the septic system on
Oh,
the right
okay,
side.
right here, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can,
I can
Yeah.
do the same thing.
You have a copy of this email, right?
I have the email,
Okay,
yeah, I do.
so it does have the stations
Okay.
on there.
and then, so the final 2 things were the swale and crown, which is a concern of mine, but it seems like it's better now and it's working. Cause as we said, the swale was kind of like, wasn't, the best solution of course would be to re-crown it, but that's a lot of work, I understand. But so hopefully the swale works, but I guess it needs, I'm not sure if we need to see it in a rainy season or what we need to see. And then the final thing was the slope, and we need to determine from town council what we need to do with that, whether we need a hearing or whatever, right?
Excuse me, Eric, on my email, I cut everything, I'm not sure what was decided on number 2, which was the size of the trees.
Some of the trees and shit.
They are there, they're growing, but they're still not decided.
I'm good with those, I don't know personally. If there's trees that are established and they,
Yeah.
I think we had agreed on that
Yeah.
in previous meeting.
I think we're good with, I'm good with that,
Yep,
yeah.
fine with that.
And then number 6, do mow down, that's, take care of that last part of swale and.
From station
before they
11 to
grade.
the left side of the
Yeah.
foreman.
That-
That,
Um,
okay.
so,
that's just
It's-
mainly mowing,
I
right?
don't know if you wanna, note this, but on number 6, Fred was noting, is it's not all swales, that you've done all of it except for the swale from station 11 to the left side of the forebay.
Oh, here,
So,
swales.
on number 6, so,
It's station 11.
yeah, from station 11 on the left side to the forebay, so it's not everything,
And including the forebay.
and include the forebay.
So what's the path forward, Erica, then? So they'll do these, they're gonna do these items. And, you know, so they're gonna do the channel, or they're gonna locate the low point channel, turn around, seed, they're gonna talk to town council. And then what?
I think, that's okay.
I just wanna know how we wrap this up.
So I guess, Walter, what do you anticipate for construction schedule?
I think we can do most of it next week, but we would ask that you release a portion of the bond now and accept the other plan anyway, because you have that in front of you. We can retain some of the bond until we complete the rest of the work.
I mean, I would just say, for example, you're holding $13,000 for landscaping in, right now. We haven't asked for any bond release money since probably 18 months ago, and we've been doing work, you know, that's on this bond list.
I would argue that the grass is still a landscaping issue.
And money was given back for the pavement, and now there's more issues
Well,
that have been discovered.
I
And
mean,
the board,
everything
the
through
board stated that too much
Everything
bond
through
was
the chair, but I would
deducted
say
for
that the requirements, again, and we are gonna see, we already talked about that. The requirements in the bond and the requirements in the permit are to seed, not to establish grass, and we've already talked about the maintenance, I don't wanna go down that road again. But, it's appropriate in my mind to release some of this bond money now. You know, we've been working with the board in good faith. And we've spent a significant amount of money since April.
Eric, just procedurally, typically when an applicant comes forward to request a portion of a bond to be released, they submit a revised estimate, and then Fred reviews that estimate
Right.
and provides his approval. At this point, although I understand where Walter's coming from, there's just, at this point, we have nothing to review and approve. So I don't know how the board
We have a
can.
bond list that was already.
I don't wanna release anything tonight. I'd like you, the biggest thing in my mind is the turnaround. Let's get that fixed. Okay? And then we'll check with town council about item number 1, and I think then we'll be.
And just so the board understands, I think I need to hear from town council first, before I have my client spend any money, especially if you've not released it. I see no compelling engineering reason whatsoever to change the slope of that driveway. I don't think anybody who's an engineer.
I think
looks
we
at
all,
it.
we all
And
agree.
I don't
We
see-
agree,
so,
we just wanna make sure we're
again-
legally in line.
Well, I understand that, but I'm not sure that my brother, Mr. Haverty, agrees necessarily. And so.
Can I clarify that, Mr. Chairman? I was not asking for the board to require the roadway to be ripped up and regraded. What I was asking is to make sure that everything is done properly, procedurally.
We wanna make sure it's not a safety issue, which I think we've established.
I understand.
Right, we're gonna cover ourselves legally.
Which is fine, I just would like that answer before my client spends any more money, in my opinion, because
It's-
we've been,
so
it
that-
shouldn't take more than a week.
That's your prerogative.
Yeah.
That's something you need to get done, like, we are running up at the end of paving season very quickly, so I would suggest getting that work done.
Okay.
That needs to get done.
So, 2 weeks does the board meet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's October 23rd.
I mean, you know, bond-wise,
We'll submit.
I think we could potentially have we could look at a partial release. I'm concerned about the swale and the crown, you know, I don't know if something will have to be done with that in the future, so I don't know.
Well, that's another thing that gets sort of similar to the driveway slope.
Right.
You know, to me, you would never rip that area up and put in a crown, because your bylaws allow for a cross slope.
Right.
And you've approved it on this site, right across the low point. that other portion of the driveway as it's going up
Yeah,
has a super
Super
elevated
Yeah.
driveway. So you would never tear that up and put a crown
yeah,
in.
yeah.
And so,
We're agreed, we don't wanna rip up.
so as long as the board is in agreement with that,
We want this to work, right?
I
We want the
understand.
swale to work, that's what we want.
We'll get the proposed bond estimate to Fred and Erica next week.
Eric, the things that, and if you took enough notes,
oh, actually, let me write this down too.
well, just, can you send an email out to
Okay.
Walter and Kevin of that list?
When you reach out to town council, would you CC me also?
I don't know that I can CC you, but I will certainly keep you in the loop.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Glad you went home.
Oh, thank you.
Always fun. Alright. Planning board, did you send in a letter of support for Bill S.E10?
I recommend
Skip it.
Oh, no, that's however you wanna do it, I was just thinking since you have the words, of the master.
Okay, okay. Alright, I will jump to master plan discussion. Let's just clear. You out of here, Fred?
I'm listening to this myself.
You can stay in the
No,
room.
this one I'll stay in the room for. Well, I don't wanna be, I.
You can't vote for yourself.
Yeah. I'm just gonna just.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it.
You're gonna be on the
second.
You're on there.
Oh, there, oh, yeah.
I don't
There is
think.
our Jim
Yeah, no,
City.
We appointed her to DRB.
It's my prerogative, so.
Okay.
You'll email me
I
and
will,
email the rest of us.
I will.
That's
go.
Great.
So,
I was gonna, let's have to make a motion.
so we have the planning board to appoint Brian Boyle, Chia Boyan, Kia Boyan, Mary Cuomo, Patty Gerken, Shel Goulding, Molly Myers, Bob Romer, Chris Rogers, Mark Sprague, Ken Troop, Kevin Weedock to the master plan steering committee. We have a few members, potential members here.
All three.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very happy and excited to get this going. We were super excited with the different, types of people we got. It seems like people from different sections of town, coming from different opinions, So, lots of experience in town, so we were very, very happy with, all the interest. And, it was good to get somebody from advisory as well to get that aspect of it put in. You guys wanna say anything, or?
Well, we need to get going.
All right, I like it.
We're excited.
Yeah.
It's long overdue.
Yeah.
Your
So you-
thoughts on next steps?
What was that?
Typically, we'll pull together an organizational meeting and figure out
Yeah,
on broad strokes where we plan to go, looking at the regulations and keeping in mind, we've done planning before in this town on a number of
Yep.
occasions, and I think certainly I have had a lot of lessons I've learned in the last 15 years since I led that group.
yeah.
So,
It's great that we have a lot of experience. It's a huge monumental task. I know that, maybe Eric and I could share with you, because we've had some people say, well, I'm interested in the Parks and Rec type thing, but I'm not sure I wanna be in the steering committee, so I don't know if you're gonna create subgroups where different people can come in and advertise with that, so if we can share those names.
yeah, and we've done that. We did that the last time around.
Yeah, but they have
Actually had 5 or
specialty
6
kind of
people
expertise.
in each one of them. And then the trick is to get all of that coordinated, so
Yeah.
you don't have silos.
Yeah, for sure.
And then go beyond the survey approach and start getting some conversation reps.
Definitely.
Certainly think that that approach was very nice, but you need initial information in order to develop some perspective on facilitating a charrette and getting the right stakeholders in place. So a lot has been learned in the last 15 years about that.
It's great, I think, Erica, you were talking about potentially, getting a meeting within the next month or so, right?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would like to get going as soon as possible. Does the board have any thoughts on that? I was initially thinking I would love to hold the first meeting in October, but October is kind of shaping up to be a very busy month for me, so,
And everybody
Poss-
else.
Okay, I'm sure. So maybe we have our initial kickoff meeting in November.
Yeah, I think early, second week of November.
That would work, yeah. So,
Awesome. You wanna,
Make a motion
yeah,
to, I'll make a motion to accept the appointees as noted, to the, master plan committee, steering committee, thank you, I knew I was missing something.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great, so, very excited to
Great.
have you
Yeah.
guys work together.
Good luck.
Yeah. Anything else?
Nothing now.
You got to enjoy our daily routine, which I'm sure you both, yeah.
With which we're finishing earlier.
We have no time for, you know, we're so happy to have this committee, we have no time for master plan when we're dealing with, you know, these issues. Yeah, lawyer fights. We need to get a lawyer on board.
Oh, we have a lawyer, Brian can be our lawyer.
Well, I was talking about planning board.
Yeah.
So,
Seems like,
just for clarification, Brian is essentially a liaison from advisory and Mark a liaison from planning. Is that the way
I
it's-
think they're full members.
Full members, yeah.
I mean,
You're stuck with us.
I accept that you really can't. If you're on advisory, theoretically, you're not on anything.
I thought it was just selectmen.
Selectmen is what I understood that.
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
look at the bylaw, I'm pretty sure that's not true. But it's all right, I mean, I'm happy to have Brian
Yeah.
on board. so-
Well, however it works out, I mean, if he has to be-
It's really needed, because we've got to do the financial side of things,
Yeah.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
which we didn't do for 10 years.
yeah, well, that
We
was,
really need to do that.
that was definitely one, yeah, one major note was, there were a lot of like, which were great paths to go, but it wasn't tied into the financial rounding of
Right.
where we stand.
That's the balance sheet, value versus cost.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look into that on Brian Boyle, you know, if he has to be a liaison,
It
then we
doesn't make
open.
any difference at all.
Well, if he has to be in a liaison,
Yeah,
then we open up an 11th spot for somebody else too. Yeah. Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Right.
Alright.
back to planning.
Planning, 9:15, I'm kinda running out of steam after that last one.
Yeah.
Do you
Do
have?
we need to do the letters of support, is that what we're?
That would be appreciated if we.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can you explain or summarize what this is?
So essentially, the bill that I'm asking you to support amends Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, requiring comprehensive permit applications to meet local bylaws when we speak to wetlands and other environmental.
Yeah, so right now 40B, you have to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act, which is the state regs, but it's not, you do not need to comply with any local bylaws. So this would, it's local wetlands only, so it's not the local planning review, like, they still don't need to comply with local planning regs, but, they would at least need to comply with local wetland regs.
So what often happens with 40B projects, what we're finding, particularly in towns like Bolton, these developments come in and they specifically target area, well, they may not, consciously do it, but it ends up targeting very environmentally sensitive
That's
properties
just the
that
way
could
it is.
not
Well,
be
they-
built.
they- they can
It's
get
cheap,
cheap
yeah,
land,
it's
it's
cheap,
not normally
exactly,
buildable.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So that's why this bill, I think, is important.
And so this is the bill under consideration right now, and this is,
Yeah.
we're voicing
And
our
we're
support
trying to
for
get
it.
it to keep moving forward.
I agree, yeah. I think it would be.
So you just want our,
John, yeah.
our approval of it?
John Hagan,
Yeah.
wanna make it, oh,
I'll move that we vote to support the Bill S. .810.
a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright.
Do you think does that have a chance of passing? Does it have enough support?
I don't know if it gets enough support, possibly.
It's definitely gonna have some
It's-
pushback.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
right now
mean-
they're trying to expand housing affordable.
And
this
it's
is
close
just
to,
gonna be
that's what I was
seen
gonna
as
say,
another way
it's,
of-
well, so it's,
It's
you've
gonna
got
look-
the people that obviously wanna expand affordable, but then you've got the environmentalists that are saying, well, look, you can still expand it, but you should be conscious of this, so who
Yeah.
knows whether it will go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the two, Still River and the Farm Road, Still River is definitely would be impacted by this,
For sure.
rightly so, and Farm Road wouldn't
Farmwood's
be.
okay, right, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, so it's really more of a, it's not that we're, you know, it's more just forcing them to say, you know, we can't bottom fish for the worst dregs of
Yeah.
land available because we can get it cheap, and just basically flip the towns off and say, we can build whatever we want.
Yeah.
So on potential articles, I mean, I don't think we need to say too much. This is all things that we've been discussing and, you know, the Housing Production Plan Committee's been discussing, so senior housing. Cottage overlay, so we're updating the cottage overlay district to include,
So I guess this is a
Affordable.
good question. Do we really wanna be moving forward any housing type bylaws at this point? Or do we wanna wait until the housing production plan is
I would
finally
wait.
Yeah.
complete?
I would wait.
So that maybe we hold off on any of the bylaws relating to
Yeah.
housing, cause
Yeah,
I
probably.
kinda feel like it's premature to do that until
Yeah.
we can stand up there and say,
Yeah.
look,
I
we
agree.
have this
Exactly.
plan.
Do we have
Yeah.
a guesstimate of when the housing?
I mean,
Should be
it
production
done
plan-
probably this fall to winter is my guess.
Yeah,
We're pretty
that's
good
the
So,
shape.
so maybe next year we can.
Yeah, we'll
That's
be
the
ready.
production plan, the housing
Yeah,
production plan.
yeah, we're in good shape,
Yeah.
it's just,
yeah,
it's not
Okay.
ready to be approved tomorrow, that's for sure.
no, there's still work to be done. We
Yeah,
haven't done
but
any.
we have, I think we have a clear path to get it done,
Right, we
need
don't,
to
we
do
haven't
that.
had any community outreach, we have to, you know,
We'll do that.
But is someone then gonna say we'll wait for the master plan to be finished
No.
before we do that?
No.
No.
They're
In fact,
independent of each other.
Probably the other way around, is
Yeah.
that the
master plan
master
we're
plan
using,
will leverage
yeah.
what's in that, but.
It's basically a subcommittee of the master plan that just got going ahead of time.
Alright, so if we go through this list, then the senior housing bylaw will hold off,
Yeah.
multi-use senior housing will hold off, cottage overlay will hold off. I do think, and I think Mark, we had talked about this, we do wanna try and correct the commercial, zoning district boundary line, or.
Yeah.
If we just
sorry,
take out the hot item, the hot issue ones.
I mean, I think we need to, well, I mean, I think the issue that we didn't explain correctly there last time around is that their density is based on the entire lot, but if it's commercial development, they have to put it in the area that's zoned commercial, which would actually force the house and barn to be stripped down. You know, they couldn't put an extra
Is
building
that correct, Erica?
further back.
Mark keeps saying that, but I'm not sure that that's the case.
Say that again? I'm sorry, I was trying to.
No, basically.
He keeps trying to sell me on that, but I'm not sure.
Their density is based on the entire lot size, but the location of the buildings would have to be within
That's the case.
the
That is
commercial
correct.
area.
That is correct.
That is correct, yeah.
Then why did we go through the whole thing with the Kane property 8 years ago where we wanted to add?
Because they wanted to be able to put septic and well in servicing the commercial part on the residential area.
I remember them specifically telling me that, because we talked about them needing 10% or 12%. They said, well, if we get this rezoning of the residential land to business land, we wouldn't even need the 10 to 12%. You know, so back then they were under the assumption that they could only use the business land.
And that's what Mark is saying.
No.
You're saying that only
Mark's
those
saying
go
that-
within the business area.
No, but he's saying you can use, to determine the square footage of building,
The overall square.
entire-
the
you can
overall
use
lot.
residential and
Yes.
business.
Yes.
Okay. That's not how I
And,
understood
and,
it.
and I think on the Kane property, I think if it had gone to 12%, they could have fit the well and septic into the commercial portion of it.
Okay,
But at 10%, they couldn't, so they had to,
okay,
they would have had to, they were trying to put stuff into the residential area, which is where the
Maybe.
town meeting issues came up.
maybe, yeah, okay.
I mean, I think we, you
If
know,
we-
maybe having a couple more outreach meetings on the rezoning so that we can explain it
I mean, if we could just do
clearly to people so that we
Yeah.
can get it all done and not, because otherwise you're gonna have one lot that's left, and then if we ever try to do anything there, it'll be spot zoning and, you know, all of that. It doesn't really accomplish.
Alright, well, we
Well, let's-
can not
let's
cross it off the
keep-
list,
yeah,
but yeah.
just-
Yeah.
I definitely think, I would like the gas station lot to be fixed and a couple of others that. So required design review board
I
and
think
engage
that's a
residential
yes.
plan developments, yep. Update accessory apartment bylaw. And that was one thing we were talking about on housing is, so, you know,
So
people,
do a whole-
people would deed restrict you know, saying that this is always gonna be an affordable apartment, essentially.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be, some sort of incentive for them to wanna do that, cause
Yeah.
why would you deed restrict
Yeah,
your apartment if
exactly.
you're not really getting anything out of it? So, one way, and this obviously we'd have to bounce off the town council, one way I kinda thought about was, oh, well, right now it has to be owner occupied, what if we allowed someone that wanted to do an affordable unit, make it purely a rental property, and then they can rent out the primary residence as well? That to me would be an incentive, that's like, oh, yeah, no brainer, I'll do that.
So you can
Um,
rent
They
out
can't
your
do that.
main house.
You can't do that right now, no, everything in town has to be owner occupied, which is fun, cause so it's really intended for like in-laws and things like that, to have people.
Wait, you can't rent out a house in Bolton?
No, you can't do an accessory apartment
Okay.
and rent out the primary, it has to
You
be
have to
owner
live in
occupied.
the
It has to be
primary.
owner occupied.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to live in the primary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we could look at that.
And again, I legally, I don't really even know if you can do it, it's just something I was thinking outside the box with, and,
And that's so we can include in SHI.
yes.
Do we know how many accessory apartments we have?
It's a good question, and it's part of the housing production plan, I wanna nail that down, I do not know.
I mean, it's probably not worth doing unless there's some number of houses that it would actually apply to.
I know of a couple just in my area alone. You know, like-
I mean,
It'd
generally
be good to
speaking,
know.
and generally
Yeah.
speaking, even if we don't have a lot, I still think it could be worth doing, because someone may wanna put on an accessory apartment to just use, you know, to be able to do that, I don't know.
And people may just have kind of like a man cave above a garage, standalone garage that, you know, isn't officially an accessory apartment that, you know, maybe you can turn it into something.
As long as they meet the building code
Right.
requirements
Yeah,
and all
exactly,
that,
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Board of Health, but.
Update ag business bylaw, and that was just, we're talking about going from 5 acres to 15 acres and things like that, right?
So for the accessory apartment bylaw though, do you
Oh.
want to hold off until the housing production plan?
Yeah,
'Cause that
that's-
was something I had put in as a strategy for
Yeah.
that committee.
Yeah, we should do that too.
Let's hold off on that one as well.
Yeah,
So,
making it's getting easier and easier.
well, we have a lot going on, I mean, we're
Yeah.
updating 2 different plans this year,
I
right?
know.
I don't think we should be putting forward too many bylaw changes.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Eric's just thinking about how much he has to get yelled at town meeting. Ruining the character of Bolton, Eric.
I know. Update ag business bylaw. Cultivate care farms. Situation essentially, right?
Well, you know, I think about Neshoba Winery and how successful that business has been, and, you know, is there an opportunity to sort of replicate that on a smaller level elsewhere? I don't know, that seems to work really well in town, people seem to love it.
Yeah.
Oh, cause
We're an
currently we're
agricultural
15
community.
acres, so you're saying a smaller acreage.
20 acres actually,
20
so
acres.
we can somehow, I don't know, it's something to think about,
Yeah, right.
so. I
Does
don't know,
anyone
more
have any
adventurous.
farms?
No, no one's come forward, but
Yeah.
it's something that if we decided to do it, I would, I could meet with the ag commission and talk to them about, I mean, who knows, they could come back and say, no, we don't like that idea.
What
It's
is,
too much competition, or who knows,
is the
but
town settled with Cultivate Care right now? Is that a?
that's final, yeah, that's done, so they're allowed to operate under, an amended decision.
Are they at the full operation that they wanted or no?
It's a good compromise, I think they were happy with what they got,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, good. Update inclusionary housing bylaw, fee and lieu schedule, density bonus, this was Mark's camp, is what you wanted to,
The fee and lieu piece.
yeah, which is fine.
So
Yeah,
it's more a matter of what do we, so a year or two ago, we changed it to
Yeah.
collect the fee based on when building permits.
Each building
Yeah.
permit, a
The-
percentage of each building permit.
Yeah, as you've seen with CME, there's nothing that would prevent a developer from getting the permits for a subdivision, selling off all the lots and walking away, and town not having any.
Well, I thought we were collecting the fee at the time of the building
When the
permit.
building permit, but the developer could get the, you know, let's say, Houghton Farms could go and say, okay, we've got all of our permits,
Yeah.
take all the lots, sell them all individually. You know, no building permits involved yet, but they're all permitted lots, so they're all ready to go. So, 10 different builders could buy different lots.
Right,
And they don't
But
know about the
there's
building,
nothing
yeah.
there,
They don't know
and
about
then
that.
the affordable piece is left,
Yeah.
so somehow, whether it's a bond up front or lien on certain lots
Alright, so
or
we'll look at-
whatever
yeah.
we need,
Yeah.
somehow we need to be able to lock in, and CME, I mean, if he sold off phase one,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah, yeah.
well, I mean,
we need, somehow the town needs to be able to get locked in that we have some ownership.
I mean, can we just
Of-
assess liens on the, can you do that, a lien on a lot?
Like add a lien?
Yeah. Just like at the start, when the lots are created, a lien gets added to it, and so someone
Yeah,
has to pay.
I think that came up when we were actually talking about Century Mill the last
And
time,
I
and
haven't seen
I have it on my to-do list to contact town
Okay.
council, cause you guys were asking me about what other leverages we have, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
you asked me that, so.
Well, I
it's on-
asked you about Andy's house, I think, but just in general. Oh, I
You-
asked you about
you-
phase one.
And
Phase
you'd
one.
asked about adding additional liens,
Yes.
didn't you?
Yeah,
I thought you
yeah,
did, so
yeah.
that is on my
Mike
list.
did or I did or both, yeah.
Okay,
it's-
so
yeah,
I
but
will ask
it's-
town council on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but just,
Okay.
but just looking at some way up front that we can lock in the town's, the inclusionary,
Yeah, that's fine, I get it,
piece
I
of
get
it
it.
into.
Yeah, so we just need to consider it, right, so I mean, now we do allow them to build a unit, donate a lot, fee in lieu
Yeah.
of, right, so we would have to make them, at the time of the subdivision, they would have to pick which one they're gonna do, and if it's,
No,
well, if, I mean, if we
no,
want.
no, I'm saying, no, I mean, somehow we need to lock in the town's surety there.
Yeah.
So whether they post a bond that would cover what the affordable, the fee in lieu of would cover, would be, or whether they give us a deed to one of the lots to hold until, until they have the money, or whether it's putting a lien on,
Okay.
or,
Yeah.
some mechanism so that right up front, when it's
Yeah.
approved, we can lock in
Yeah.
the town's
Okay.
right to,
Yep.
So we'll keep that one,
Hmm?
To collect.
Well, I mean, that's part of the approval, and, but right now,
Yeah, we
you know,
screwed ourselves.
I mean, as you've seen in CME, there's 5 lots that, he sold off that,
Yep.
So
update
the next,
mixed use,
yeah, the next two are kinda housing production, so
so
we'll skip
we'll
those.
hold on those.
Yeah. Overall cleanup of zoning bylaws, update the schedule of uses, eliminate conservation restriction on open space for industrial properties.
What is that?
Why eliminate conservation restriction
Yeah.
on open space? Why is that?
Which one are you on?
It says
Overall cleanup?
overall, yeah,
Overall cleanup zoning bylaw?
yeah, it says eliminate conservation restriction on open space for industrial
Oh,
properties.
it was just the thought I had because, so we had added that in when we did the revision to the dimensional schedule, when we required 33%
Yeah.
open space. And then we
Mhm.
said on top of that, there needs to be a deed restriction, and the more and more I've been thinking about it, and obviously we can just, you can say, no way, we're gonna keep it, it just seems a little bit, it's such a long process to get a conservation restriction, it typically takes, you go to the state to get it, and I think it's a year process, so is that something that we
really?
want to force applicants to go through to?
Yeah, I didn't know the procedures to it, I think my thought was I just didn't want it to be, 33% open lawn.
So perhaps
Yeah,
maybe the
yeah.
shorter way of doing it would be, they could donate it to the, I don't know, I just, it doesn't have
We
to
can
be
talk
this
about
year,
it.
maybe I figure out
Well,
more
let's
what that
keep,
process is.
we'll keep overall
and-
cleanup, let's keep overall cleanup of
Yes.
zoning bylaws, and we
Yeah,
can
and we'll-
kind of
we'll
discuss
figure
that
it
in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Adopt,
Sorry.
you can go if you want.
Adopt MGL to allow bond money to be used towards taxes?
Oh, yes, so the tax collector brought to my attention that there's a section in Mass General Law that essentially says if like a developer, if the town is holding money of a developer, bond money, and, he owes back taxes, we can like essentially take the bond money to pay that tax.
But why would we wanna do that?
Yeah.
If there was remaining bond that, let's say a project was finished and we were
I
holding
know, but
bond
we still
and
At the end.
rather than releasing it to them, we could,
Oh,
like,
okay.
you know what I mean, like.
So if the work was done, basically, if
Right,
the work was
right.
done.
No, typically, no, you wouldn't take a bond
Yeah,
if there was
yeah.
work still remaining, but.
So then we wouldn't be doing partial releases if we had that in the back of our mind as well, if it was an issue.
Well, I just, take, Century Mill.
Yeah, that's
For
exactly what I was
example,
thinking.
I mean, he completes the work and we have some money left, I mean, I wouldn't wanna give it back to him, I would wanna
If-
make
if
sure that
the
some of the
town's
taxes
also-
got paid.
Alright, yeah, no, that's.
And in order to do that, I believe you have to adopt that section of Mass General law to do it, so
Okay.
we'll look into that. And that probably won't even be, if it is the case, it probably won't even be planning board, it'll be board of selectmen.
Are there more Mass General?
Yeah, how many more of these optional
Yeah,
laws
like,
are
we
there?
I don't know.
Using that.
Yeah.
That would be good to know, 'cause I mean, the bond one even,
Yeah, right.
we
Yeah.
couldn't even pull the bond ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I added this last one just because I know there's a couple of, so it kinda coincides with the
We have a couple of
short term.
non-conforming ones, right?
Right, there's a couple of non-conforming ones that, you know, they're not supposed to have more than 5 guests, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But, if we do allow it, they can expand and, or have more than
You just gotta be
5 guests.
careful we don't trigger, like, the whole air,
Airbnb.
yes.
Well, so the other thing is,
Like-
I wanted to, so that's bed and breakfast, but also, I see no problem with Airbnb, like short-term rentals, we can talk about it, but,
We probably should, it's actually a very good conversation we should
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
and I think we should, probably, we talked about putting something together, but I think we pushed it off, right?
yeah.
With the Airbnb,
Well,
it's
so
just
if we're
too
gonna
much
So we could
putting-
state law and everything was in.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna
So
be doing
maybe-
a lot
maybe-
less
yeah.
without all the housing stuff,
Yeah,
so part of my reason of saying this is, I talked to Brian Boyle about it, cause now we have 6%, rooms tax,
mhm.
Mhm.
so, you know.
For none of
if
our
we-
rooms.
Huh?
For none of our rooms.
Well, we have the international. But,
We do have a couple of legitimate B&Bs in town, so.
well, so, are they legitimate now? I don't know. Technically, they're not.
Charles' house is.
Ho-
So maybe
Is
add,
it?
Yeah.
so keep
I was
bed and
from
breakfast,
years
but maybe
ago.
add
Oh,
Airbnb
okay.
to that bylaw.
I don't know, it's just short-term rentals, so we
Yeah.
can talk about it or not, you know. So I think, but bed and breakfast is different from the Airbnb.
No, that's what I was saying,
Yeah.
to kind of maybe
Yeah.
do two separate ones.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Yeah,
So what Brian Boyle said is, bed and breakfasts have an exemption up to, if you're 3 rooms or less and you're owner occupied, you don't have to pay the rooms tax, but if you're more than 4 rooms, then you would. And then Airbnb, you would get the 6%
okay.
rooms tax, so I don't know. I was just thinking of other ways to bring some of those, you know, back kinda in line.
Yep.
Town bylaws, but also maybe we can get some money for the town, I don't know,
Yeah, I'll start there.
yeah.
Or still get,
And if,
Totally a key there.
yeah, and if we're, not doing complicated housing bylaws, then we have
Yeah.
some frivolous bylaw time.
frivolous.
Well, I'm just saying, it's
either of
like
those are
easier time.
frivolous.
Huh?
I don't think either of those are frivolous, I still think it requires a lot of research.
It's not
and-
like, you know, it's not what we tried to do last year.
It would be, I mean, it would be good to look into the
Yeah.
Airbnb
I
stuff.
think
I'm
it would
very
be good, I
curious
think
what
it would, I
other
started
towns are
looking
adopting
into it
and-
when we had that issue,
Yeah.
and I was looking at what other towns were doing, so I think it would be worth it.
I mean, well, in both of those, you know, it would be allowed in the residential zone with a special permit. So neighbors, you know, maybe it's in the middle of the woods where neighbors wouldn't care, or maybe it's in Fox Run where neighbors would care, you know, so.
Or not, or what,
Yeah.
Although if it's
All right.
permitted and
Minutes.
controlled in some way, then it's
Do we
Right.
have to sign one of each? One of
just
these?
one signing
One
one
copy.
Okay.
Alright.
Has everybody reviewed them yet, or?
I looked at
I
them.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
Okay,
issues?
I'll move we accept the minutes from September 11th, 2018, and September 25th.
I'll second.
2018.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have to initial these, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Just one copy.
Yeah,
Okay.
one copy, and
Go down the line. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mhm.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.